Hey kids, so what I'm going to show you here is not so much how to make a mask, um, but to touch back on one of the standards that I've taught in our class multiple times. It's one of the things that we're supposed to bring to your attention as an art teacher, and that's how is art used in professional fields and careers. And a lot of times people take to mean that as, oh, I'm supposed to tell you that you can go be an art teacher, an architect, a graphic designer, or a painter. There are a lot more careers than that. I know we've covered it in class, but one of the examples I've repeatedly have given is the example of that art is used as an innovation in the medical field. And art is used to help do things to help save us and keep us safer. So if you combine science and art, yes, you can find amazing things and create amazing things. But both the artistic process and the creative process combined together can do things that are really impactful on us as a society. And one of the things that's going on right now is mask making. And I'm not the only one doing this. I did not invent these patterns, though I did modify it for my production use. So you can tell I'm breathing through it because it's 100% cotton. Um, Making a good mask means you are paying attention to the material you're using. Because, like, let's say I use a plastic bag. That'd be bad. You wouldn't be able to breathe through a plastic bag. You could suffocate yourself. Same with, I've seen really bad info just thrown out on social media that's not reviewed so well, like saying using parts from vacuum cleaners. There are a lot of bags in vacuum cleaners that are not meant to go over your face. And even if it doesn't have dangerous chemicals in it or fiberglass, it might not allow your breathing to really go through it so much as out the sides. So it's forcing the vapor barrier out the sides and just is pushing it in a different direction, where this actually will filter it a little bit better. And then I've seen bad data. A friend of mine even shared. I had to like, whoa, what are you guys saying? She's like, oh, masks do nothing. Absolutely nothing. Someone designed a graphic saying, these do nothing. Why are you even bothering them? It does 0%. I'm like, I've taught kindergartners art before during pollen season. And kindergartners are still learning how to behave socially. So they're learning how to do things like not sneeze on you. And while they're learning that, they might sneeze on you. And I can tell you, there's a big difference between a kid sneezing on you like this, achoo, versus a kid doing this, and versus a kid doing this. And if you don't know what that experience is like, I love teaching middle school. Okay, so I love kindergartners too, but wow, yeah, I don't miss that. So no, they do make a difference in that they reduce the amount of transmission of bacteria and things coming from you, whoever's wearing it. Now, is it going to protect you from everybody else? Does this mean you put these on and go like wrestle in your backyard and play you're safe? No. You still need to maintain social distancing, but in case you have to go out, yes, these are helpful um, to have. So I'm trying to make as many as possible for those that need them or want them. And also, I'm kind of giving priority, well, really giving priority to when someone says, hey, I've got a cousin or a sister or a brother who's working at a hospital or they're working somewhere medical and they're running out of PPE and they really need these, so they can take the best filters they have and give it to the people that are going to be the most at risk with patients, and then the ones that are working with, oh, you're here because you stubbed your toe. Well, they might not need the best filtration, but they still don't know if that person stubbed their toe could be a carrier, so this helps. So anything we can do to help lessen transmission is good. But again, being an artist and understanding your materials and knowing how to work with those materials is important. And knowing math is important. Knowing science is important. Knowing how to vet your research, meaning check your research and make sure it actually has basis on it and not just someone's opinion. Some people will make a very beautiful, detailed graphic image and put it online and make it look real. And it might even look like it's coming from a news website. But if you start to dig into it, you find it was funded by Joe Bob, blah, blah, blah. And they just have an agenda or they just want something done. And it's not done in the spirit of just wanting to know the facts. So you got to be careful and you got to do your research. So I did my research. I went to Johns Hopkins website, which is a major hospital that is monitoring um, this disease that we're all home from all over the world, not just in the US. And if you're interested in science at all, I suggest go look at their website, Johns Hopkins Medical Hospital. But cotton. So cotton they're finding is the best fabric. I didn't own a lot of cotton. As you know, my favorite fabric to sew and work with and wear is linen. Love linen. Anytime I can find it on sale or get a coupon, or even relatives, they'll get me gift cards. Love linen. But I was like, okay, I got linen. Let me see if that'll work. And then even just knowing linen breathes. That's what makes it so comfortable in the summertime. Well, that's not exactly what you want. You want it to breathe, but you want it to also, if it gets wet, to kind of swell up and seal. And linen doesn't do that. That's what makes it comfortable. So cotton is a better choice. And it's cheaper. And I'm like, well, I don't have to cut up my expensive linen. And I kind of save for really special things. Let me see if I can get a hold of some cotton. So I had to go to the store, and I didn't have one of these masks. And, you know, me being asthmatic and not knowing how many people would be there, I decided I would wear my mask that I use to mix ceramic glazes and clays. Now, this mask has a valve right here where when I breathe out, all the air pushes out of it. And what I'm going to do is hold up. So it's kind of like Darth Vader. Don't sue me, Disney. I'll give you full credit, or whatever, Lucas Studios, whatever. But the air comes through here. This is the filter. And it goes into the inside, and there's a valve. So the air can only go in this way. It can't go in this way. And then there's a valve going out, so the air can only go out that way when I breathe out and not anywhere else. So it lets the air go in and out. So this protected me from getting sick going out, or reduced it at least. It can't be 100% because I could still have someone cough and it gets in my eyeball. You just don't know. But it reduced it. So I had a little cotton cover that I made that went over this. I wore this to go out, and I got lots and lots and lots of cotton, and I have friends sending me cotton, and then I have a place to order cotton, so I don't have to keep going back out. So I'm lucky that I don't have to go back out. Not everybody has that option, and I'm lucky that I had a mask, and I'm lucky that I have a sewing machine. Not everybody has these things, and I know that too. So this is what I've been doing during my spring break, and this is what I do about every other evening. I don't do this all the time because there's some days where I'm tired and I'm stressed out. I'm like, I just don't have the energy. And that's okay. And then there's days where I'm like, nope, I got all the energy in the world. I'm going to be up and I'm going to go make 50 masks. It's okay. Either is okay. These are tough times, and there's no right or wrong way to do this. So I want to show you what cotton does. It's really cool. So producing hundreds of masks versus just one or two for my family, I'm like, I know how to do production work because I do it with you guys. You don't realize it, but having 200 students, I have to think, okay, that's cool. I want to set up this little art project, but I have to do it for 200 people. How do I do that? How do I make sure I have enough materials, resources, and organize it quickly? So it's one of the things I know about cotton. That's my dog scratching his belly over there. I don't know if you can hear it. Is you can make a little cut in it. And you're like, big deal, Miss K, you're just ruining your cotton. No, look, it rips right on the weave. Remember we talked about weaving of over and under and warp and weft, and there's straight lines going one way and straight lines going the other? Well, it will rip right along the weave, so it'll give you straight pieces, almost better than if I cut it. So what I did was I calculated, I used math, and I even made a pattern using Johns Hopkins pattern combined with another pattern I got from another nurse and doctor. And then also kind of thinking through and planning, I sketched out a bunch of ideas. I wrote down a lot of information before I decided on what kind of mask I was going to sew. If I was going to do a pleated one or do one of those really cool curved ones that kind of molds to your face, which one would be a little bit more effective and which one can I do quicker. And I realized for me to cut out curves for like hundreds of pieces, I'd have all these little scrap triangles everywhere. Versus if I ripped a bunch of rectangles out of a giant sheet, of multiple yards of cotton, I would get more out of it. So I made this pattern so I would know about how much to make. So when I go to rip my pieces, I lay this on and I cut it with the scissors. And I rip those strips and then I run it down again and make those cuts right on the edges. It saves me time marking it. It saves me time cutting it. And I know I'm going to get a straight, clean cut. So straight and clean that sometimes the masks, when I go to pleat them and iron them, it lines up almost perfectly, which is really crazy because that wasn't done intentionally. It was just done by the process of the craft. So I have different cottons. One of the things the hospitals have asked for is please don't do it in like a solid bluish green because then it looks like a surgeon's mask. And they might think, oh, this is the really super duper safe mask. And it's not quite as safe. It's safer, but it's not quite as safe. So they don't want to confuse the two. So they ask that you use patterns. So just in case it ever winds up being used by somebody that might think it's one or the other, I've always used patterns with these. And they also suggest you use 2 different patterns in 2 different colors from front to back. So that way when I take my mask off, I know which is the front and which is the back, and I can easily see, and I don't accidentally take the part with all the germs on it and flip it this way, or vice versa. If I'm sick, I'm putting it to the outside, so it's not cross-contaminating. By the way, I'm going to iron this with a really hot iron to kill any bacteria before I go back out with it again. So it's clean, but I'm not going to sit here and handle it all day and then go out. I know a lot of it's like, well, it's just going to get touched again. It still reduces it. Again, kindergartners, tissues. Tissues are good. Masks are good. It's pretty simple. All right. So there's a lot of steps to this. So once I make these squares, I take the squares and I put them face to face, like so. Just like this, and so they're lined up. And I might even spend one afternoon where I'm not making one mask at a time, but I'll just spend an afternoon just stacking and pushing them together, stacking and pushing them together, stacking and pushing them together. And as soon as I got like a pile of about 20 or 30 stacked like that, I'll take them in that whole stack and take the 2, and I put it into my sewing machine here. Now you probably can't see too well because I've got the light on. Let me see if it'll sew with that off. There we go. Now you're going to need the light. All right. And I'll sew leaving a seam allowance. Now a seam allowance, you can't sew the fabric right at the edge because the stitches will just fall right off. The threads will come apart and it comes apart. Sometimes clothing will do that on its own. You'll be like, wait a second, I can't believe this is falling apart, man. And that's why, good craftsmanship is worth it. Not everything that's expensive was made with good craftsmanship. But things that are made with good craftsmanship should cost a little bit more than the cheapest thing because they were made well. So, I believe in paying good craftsmen and artists what they ask for their work because you're getting good quality and it'll probably last longer than you think. Versus something that's mass-produced, even if it's got a fancy label on it, if it wasn't crafted well in the factories it was made in, it's not going to last. Materials you use are important too. Like I said, cotton, that's what we're using here. This is the best material that I can really get a hold of right now. So, I'm going to take this, and if you look, I'm not going to go all the way around because I have to leave a hole, and that's to turn it inside out. Now, I'm going to pull this. I have a little cutter on the side of my sewing machine here. I bought this sewing machine about 16 years ago. Whew. I saved up for it, used my birthday money on it. I even traded in an old machine that wasn't working. They said, that's fine that it's not working. Here you go. And now, see, I'm turning it inside out. I pushed into that hole right there. See the wrong side of the fabric? Turning it inside out, and look at that. The right side is coming out to the front. Now, once I get this right side out, my corners are kind of round and fluffy. It looks kind of like a pillow. So to push those out, I push my rounded tip pair of scissors into the corners, just like so. La, la, la. And just like that. And it makes it more of a rectangle. Not perfectly a rectangle, but more of a rectangle. And then with that rectangle, I'll press it flat with an ironing board. And I decide what's going to be the front, what's going to be the back. And I kind of like the blue on the front. So I'll take, this is going to be the inside that goes towards your face. So I'm going to fold that in half. And then I press it with an iron. So it gives me like a fold line, kind of like a piece of paper. When you fold it and you crease it, you have that line left over. Well, the same thing happens when you iron it. Now, if you don't iron it, you don't get it as much. Just a little bit of one there. But when you iron it, it really holds that line down. Now, sometimes you can get away with just rubbing it, but like I said, I iron it. So anyway, I got that crease line. Well, if I fold the edge in to touch it, and I fold the other edge in to touch it, and then I fold this over like this, and I press it, it's folded into quarters. And that gives me 3 fold lines. And what that 3 fold lines does is this. It gives me a way to pleat it. Oh, see that? Gives me a way to pleat it. And the way I do that is I take that fold line, I push it over. I take that fold line, I push it over. I take that fold line, I push it over. And I usually measure and mark it on my thumb, so I know that it's like a 1/2 inch, which really means it's an inch of cloth being folded. But that gives me a mark so I can go very quickly when I go to press a bunch of these. So I'll press a bunch of these as one step, and I'll just have a stack of all these little like accordion-looking pieces of fabric. Like, well, that's gonna do no good. So to hold those accordion pleats where I want them, or they're not really accordion pleats. That's a whole fancy other term. So if anyone's like, oh, that's an accordion. The kids see it as an accordion. Calm down there, Susan. All right. So you're going to take this and I stitch 2 rows of stitches into kind of like a box. So it really holds it because this is going to hold that tension. And if that's got tension on it, I don't want it to rip. So that's why I double stitch it. And then I take a ribbon like this. I don't have so much of this, and this is actually kind of expensive because out of an entire spool of ribbon, I might only get 3 masks out of it if I'm lucky, because I need to have 2 of these for the top and the bottom of the mask for 4 ties, and they have to be way long. We're talking like the tip of my finger all the way to the back of my shoulder, like, I feel like a wrestler and like, on TV. Okay, so I'll stitch those to the bottom here. First I'll stitch it to the back on one side, I flip it and roll it, and then I stitch it to the bottom on the front. And then I do the same thing to the top, but when I do the top, before I close it completely, it's like halfway through, I'll slide a piece of folded up wire that I've had to sit and twist. And then I stitch it all the way closed. And the reason I do that is when I put on the mask, I can bend the wire and it holds its shape along my nose. So I get a better seal. And that helps if you have glasses to have a little less fog come up in your glasses. If you don't have glasses, you might not know what I'm talking about. If you do have glasses, you know what I'm talking about. So wire, again, this is another step of having to know materials and tools. So it's really hard to find the kind of wire that really should be used in here. So a bunch of nurses have come up with a solution of if you use floral wire, that'll work too. And I have to cut quite a long piece of floral wire, and you're like, well, that's way too long. But by the time I curl up the edges and work it in, and it bends up and over your nose and over the bridge and over your cheeks, it's just long enough. So I use my pliers here. There's a cutting blade on it. Whoops. It's easier when I can see it on the other side. There we go. And I kind of straighten that wire out. And I was using a single piece of wire before and curling both ends, but I found it was just a little too squishy and soft, and I realized that this might be a little bit quicker and a little bit sturdier. So I want these to work well, because another thing you can study in art is Bauhaus design, and the Bauhaus really believed that function came before form. Something can be as pretty as can be, but if it doesn't work well, then it's really no use. It's just going to make you angry and frustrated, and that does not add to the beauty or joy of your life. So you want something to work well. So like even the patterns I picked for the mask, I didn't pick like really super girly or really manly patterns or even like really any gender kind of based pattern. I just picked geometric colorful patterns. And that way, people might be more likely to wear them, and they might be more likely to complement an outfit, and they still are a pattern like hospitals recommend. So I take this wire that's now folded and curled up together, and I use that. That'll be the piece that bridges over your nose. So in the top of the mask, there's a piece that goes like this. And it can bend multiple times. It can straighten back out, can bend again, can fold in half even. It's very forgiving. So those are sewn into the mask as well. So this took a lot of planning, a lot of steps. Kind of think of all the storyboarding we did when designing like films and things like that. It kind of works like that. You have to plan all these steps and you have to take that into consideration. So again, a lot of math, a lot of science, a lot of reading, a lot of research, a lot of asking questions and fact checking, and considering what is the best and worst things to use. Like there's a lot of bad info out there on what to do with and without masks. And so hopefully this gives you a little bit of something or encourages you to go do some research on your own. And again, I'm more likely to trust a hospital that's giving recommendations than some meme that somebody made. Like I saw one today talking about farts. I'm like, this isn't science. It's entertaining, but it's not science. And I trust science. So again, you want to try to stay safe out there, but I thought you'd be interested in seeing patterns, the math, the science, the reading, the writing, and a little bit of sewing. So if you have any questions, go ahead and email me or hit me up in Google Classroom, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Later.